Here we got a question from Marc, who has been training for about 5 years. He's a blue belt. He has a really good thing going on with his jiu-jitsu game that's leading into a not so good problem. So Marc says that with his training right now, he has a really good triangle. Says really good triangle. He says he's able to finish people that are everywhere as far as rank goes, everyone from a white to black belt range. He can finish someone in that range pretty effectively with his triangle, which is a good thing, right? But the problem that he's running into is that he says he's always going for the triangle because, you know, when it feels good. You're doing the thing all the time, it's working, success feels good, you're gonna keep doing it. Why that's a problem is he says he feels like he's becoming one-dimensional and he feels like his game is beginning to plateau because of he's just using the same stuff all the time. So his question to me is, should he move away from the triangle for maybe a couple weeks to a month or two, or should he do something else? And he's wondering what I would tell him to do. So Marc, thanks for the question, dude. And in this situation, you're at that range going from blue to purple belt. Obviously, I've been training for 5 years, so you're probably a high-level blue moving into purple. It's at that time that I always encourage people to really begin to specialize, because as a white belt, you sort of learn stuff. As a blue belt, you then have a foundation built, and you begin to try stuff out and see what you're good with. And then as blue moves into purple, you've tried enough stuff out, really begin to specialize and develop a really sharp weapon, really sharpen a really good weapon up in your game. And the reason why I think that's so important is that when you sharpen one of your positions, one of your submission games, something like that, to where you can use it on everybody in the room when you're rolling, you then know what it feels like to be at a high level of jiu-jitsu, at least in one area of your game. And why that's important is because, people can talk about it, people can say, hey, here's what you need to do, but it's a different thing to actually feel it. To be able to know that in your back pocket, you got this position that you can pull out and you can submit people, or you can sweep them, or you can pass their guard, or whatever it might be. That's powerful. And then what you do is, after you continue to get better in jiu-jitsu and continue to train, you then take the information and the lessons that you learned to make this thing happen, to make this position happen, and you take them everywhere else into your game, and you begin to develop other positions and other submissions and sweeps and things like that. Where this kind of happened with my game, at least in one area, was with my half guard. Because as a purple belt, and I'm kind of using this because that's kind of almost where you're at right now, as a purple belt, I got exposed to a few sweeps and an entry from my old coach, Renato Tavares. And man, I don't know what it was about the moves, but they just fit me perfectly, and I started to really dive into the half guard. And within a few months, I could sweep pretty much everybody on the mat with these two sweeps that I had from Renato. One of them was the toe tuck sweep. That was kind of the first one that I learned how to do. And afterwards, man, it was just like, that was my position. I was doing it all the time. Now, one of the things I started to do, because it was at the same time that I was starting to teach, and I don't know, it's always been this way. Like, whenever I was teaching, I didn't want to just hit the same sweep all the time on people, because I just felt like I'm not getting much out of this. So what I would do then is I would get to this position where I would like sweep. So like right when I had the toe tuck sweep ready to go and I could sweep them, I would stop. And I would just see what the person on top did. And a lot of times what I found is that people had the same responses. They would start doing the same stuff, pushing the head the same way, going for guillotine chokes and Dart chokes, whatever it was. And then I would develop sweeps and counters to that. And then what I found is that it's almost like the tip of the iceberg. Here was my toe tuck sweep that I was hitting everybody with, but by allowing people to like try to defend it, and by not sweeping them immediately and like allowing them to defend it and counter it, and then manually making myself have to counter it and make up new sweeps and come up with new options, it was like the tip of the iceberg, and then the game was down here. So yeah, maybe the toe tuck sweep works, but if it doesn't, I've got this game where if this doesn't work, then we'll do this, and if this doesn't work, we'll do this, and we'll just keep going, and has a lot of options. So you want to do that with your game as well, and I'll talk about how you can do that in just a second. The other thing that I did to make my half guard game become better and more expanded was finding different ways to get there. So I knew the one entry that Renato had showed. So then I was like, well, where else can I get there from? I found like, hey, I can get there when I escape mount, when I escape back mount, when I escape from side control. I can get to the half guard position from there. I can do it from the feet. I can literally get to that half guard position from pretty much any position that I'm in, whether it be offensive or defensive. I can find my way there. And so what this did is when shit hit the fan, so to speak, I could always find my way back to this really good position. And then once I got to the position, I had all these attacks, all these options and sweeps ready to go. So no matter what, again, it was probably going to be good for me in that situation. So what you could do with your triangle is kind of do the same thing. Instead of just, and this is really important with the triangle, by the way, instead of just using the triangle as a submission, try locking the legs up on the person's head, on their head, and then allowing them to move. see how they defend it, see how they try to pull their arm out, see how they try to raise up, and then you make options based on the things that you're running into. My black belts, Chad and Rich, both of those guys have incredibly nasty triangle chokes, but they also have really good triangle positions. So even if they attack you with a triangle choke and it doesn't work, you've got a whole barrage of attacks waiting for you. So it's not likely that once they get there, you're going to make it out of it. I know with Chad, like, that's not a position I want to be in. Neither is it with Rich. And so what you want to do is have that same thing, and a way that you can develop it is by loosening up a little bit. So you go for your best move and then allow a little bit of space. See what they do. And then once they begin to defend it, attack or counter what they're defending, counter how they're moving out of it, and then you'll begin to get this, A, B, C, D sort of options where basically, again, the triangle choke is the tip of the iceberg. Below it, there's all your arm bars, sweeps, and everything else. The second thing that I would tell you to do is, as you're developing this position and getting it really good, you said in your message you have 2 setups that you use. Find more, right? See how you can get to the triangle choke. Maybe you can get there from a mounted triangle. Maybe you can find it from a, like right off the guard pull, you can go for the triangle. Maybe you can do it from like half guard, full guard, wherever. Start looking for more options and more setups. So this way, not only do you have this really deep position, but you have a ton of ways to pull the person into it, because that's really important. As you begin to get really good at this position, people are going to know you're the triangle guy, and so they're going to do everything they can to not get caught in the triangle. So by having lots of other options, they don't have a choice, right? So maybe they're like, well, I'm not going to go in your full guard, and you're like, fine, I'll triangle you from half guard. Or then maybe like they pull guard and you pass their guard, and they're like, okay, well, he's in mount, but he's not going to triangle me. Boom, then you triangle from mounted triangle or with a mounted triangle. So learning more options to get there, so this way you can constantly get back to your best area. And then again, once you've developed that really razor sharp game, then you use that same mentality, that same drive, that same, sort of focus that you use to develop this one game, and then you take it everywhere else. So, Marc, thank you so much for the question. I hope this is helpful to you, brother. And guys, I will talk to you next time.